for Flames Unfiltered, hosted by Burud, Kyle Lewis, talking Flames hockey every week. Kyle, good to have you here. It's done. We're done. I'm done playing hockey, and it's weird to look at my weekly schedule and not see, like, hey, Tuesday night I'm going to watch the Flames. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's different for sure. Despite the fact, I've been saying I felt this was coming for a while. Like the finality is still different, right?
We were, believe me, we were both mentally prepared, right?
Yeah. As much as one can be, right? I was thinking actually a few times the last week since it's been over, like just the frustration involved with becoming. It's the most Flames thing ever, as several others have said. Becoming the team with the distinction of having the most points ever by a non-playoff team.
I know.
96 points.
I know. I'm trying really, really hard, and like me, maybe 3 years ago would have been way more mad about that. Shoot, me last year would have been way more mad about that. I'm actually looking at it going this year like, crap, we like really, really over exceeded all of our expectations, which is a great thing. But my only fear on the negative side of that is like, and we'll have plenty of time this summer to talk about it, but like how and what needs to happen so that we can replicate that and then have growth and advancement in our younger players. And then that moves us in, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. I will say this, Kyle, like now the playoffs started on Saturday night. I watched a little bit of I watched most of the Winnipeg game, I guess I could say. Mm-hmm. I've struggled a little bit, like yesterday, not 1 second to the Carolina Jersey game that I see. Saw some highlights. I saw Markstrom break his own guy's leg. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What is he doing?
I don't have an answer for that.
That series does not enamor me, but I find myself when I'm watching these games just a little bit zoned out. And I think part of that is like it is that feeling of like, crap, our team's not in this, right? And that I'm used to it. Like we've been going through it plenty here in Calgary. And I usually snap out of it in about another week.
It's like mental exhaustion.
Yeah.
Like we're just to be that, like I keep thinking about this meme, and any Office fans can appreciate it, where Michael is role playing, having to fire somebody, and what his reaction would be. And this is like how I think about the Flames, like, I'm gonna kill myself and it's your fault. like like it's been so frustrating, like because they got so close, right? Like so you literally cannot get closer than that. And then to watch, and I understand what you're saying, because like some of these series, like I'm not overly invested in New Jersey, Carolina, because I'm not the least bit invested in either team. I am invested a fair amount in the Winnipeg Jets because I love that market, and the hits in that game, especially in the first period, were just a thing of beauty. But all told, if you're a real ride or die fan of any one franchise, you can't tell me you're as excited about playoff hockey and your team's not in it. It's still great. I love playoff hockey. I'll be watching as much as I can, but it's still a totally different level when you're not a part of it.
It is. And if someone says they don't feel that way, they're full of it. And not only you mentioned that we broke a record for, was it broke or tied a record for?
I think we smashed it. I think it's okay. But it is firmly a Flames record now. Yeah.
So for the most points and still missing the playoffs. Another thing that irritates me is I look on the other side of the board, and this happened last year too. And last year it was a tie, but this year we have more points than the Devils, Habs, and Blue Jackets. Now the Blue Jackets didn't make the playoffs, but I mean the Devils and Habs did, and we had more points than them. And I pull up the standings, which if you've looked on NHL.com, like literally when the playoffs start, they like hide the standings. I don't know, but I tracked it down. This team goes 7-1-2 in their last 10, and ties with with St. Louis, and we lose out on the tiebreaker. And I mean that is life. We move on, but gosh, it's disappointing. As I turned on the Minnesota game last night, I thought, geez, that should be us. And then when I had the Winnipeg game on the other day, I thought, oh, this could be us here, and it's not. But it is what it is, right?
No, it sucks, and I mean it almost sucks more getting so close. I mean, the optimist would look at it and say, man, this team, like you said, overachieved so much, but the pessimist would say the team failed in their goal, and ultimately that's what they did. And you alluded to it in our last show about that loss to Anaheim being a shining example. Like, and you look at the team's goal differential. Like, it's incredible they're even in the playoff conversation because, man, they suffered that category. But
we're minus 13. Minnesota was a minus 11. But yeah, I mean, I look back. I know you've pointed to that St. Louis series, and I agree with you completely because that's who we were chasing, right? But I also, I mean, that Anaheim game was right. It's so recent, and it's so right there that it's just like I can't believe that happened, right?
Well, again, the team, they just take nothing away from what they accomplished. They didn't get the job done, and I think that's the way you have to approach it. Not to be down on yourself and bemoan your failures, but to say, yeah, we weren't good enough, and next year we need to be good enough if we want to make it happen. That includes things like repeat performances from some of our veterans, hopefully, but more importantly, these young guys taking another step. So we got all summer to talk about that.
That's right. Let's switch gears just a hair here and talk a little bit about the game that was played since we've last talked, and that's at the makeup game from the Wildfires in Los Angeles, and the Flames go down to Los Angeles, and I guess the only reason we're probably going to talk about this game is simply because the four rookies get their first game, and some guys that we really like and some guys we were excited to see, and that being Sam Morton, Zane Parekh, Hunter Brustevich, and Suniev. And it was another one of those games, Calgary gets down or they didn't get down. They just went right from the get-go. Here's Kadri scores, and then Sam Morton gets his first. And I bring that one up because his reaction was classic. It was classic.
Oh, his reaction, his family's reaction were really cool.
Yeah. And then Kadri gets another one. Parekh gets his first. I cannot remember. Can you name me one defenseman that has scored their first goal on a tip-in?
No, I would do take me hours of research to find that.
Crazy. So he
and leveled his teammate in the aftermath.
He did, yeah. I thought Coleman got it. I did. I thought Coleman got it.
That's funny.
But
it speaks to his, to Parekh's offensive instincts to be where he was and to make that play. So it certainly wasn't how I expected his first NHL goal to look, but hey, I'm sure he'll take it.
And LA's only goal that they scored in the 5-1 defeat was from Taylor Ward, who is the son, and I know you're not going to know this, and I don't expect you to know this, son of Dixon Ward, who played for the Vancouver Canucks. And gosh,
I do remember that name, actually.
He played somewhere else. He played for the University of North Dakota, and that's how I know him, because he's pretty close in my age, and watched him play in North Dakota a lot, and I got to meet him a couple of times because he married a girl from a hometown, a good friend of mine. So
cool.
Fun to see him get out there and get a goal. He's so funny because when I watch him, and I didn't know, I knew he had a son that played. I did not follow Taylor Ward at all, but when I saw him on the ice, I had to laugh because he is a lot bigger than his dad. His dad was a smaller, faster guy, and Tyler looks like he's a bigger guy. Taylor, I hit it right the first time. Much bigger guy. So that win gives us 2 points. It brings us into that tie. And down the stretch, this team went 10-2-3, got 23 of a possible 30 points. And I rip on them for the one they let get away, but it still is tough.
That's an impressive run. I mean,
it is.
It's just and I think the bigger thing was losing that game against the Ducks the way they did, and that's the last thing I'm going to say about it because it's still bothersome. It's still raw.
It is raw, it isn't. And then the Ducks are the stupid team. We let them come back, and then they're the team that gives up the goal to Minnesota with 20 seconds to go.
Right? How poetic.
Salt into the wounds. Talk to me what you thought. Give me the rundown of your take on Morton, Parekh, Brustevich, and Suniev.
Brustevich was good. I mean, he was a little under the radar, which I wasn't really shocked to see. I thought he played a pretty solid game. Parekh, we saw some flashes of his offensive brilliance for sure. I'm going to keep this fairly brief because it's one game and I don't want to get too excited about any of it.
I know you told me last week.
Yeah. I thought Sam Morton did a really good job auditioning for next season's roster potentially in the fourth line. I like that signing right from day one. And Suniev, I thought, in a way, impressed me the most because he was, the one I paid the least attention to this season, I would say. So I think he gets a long look in camp. He's got some great offensive instincts. He's a good skater. Yeah, I mean, I was happy with all four, and I had mistakenly questioned. I shouldn't say mistakenly, but in a sense, about Dryden Hunt being lined up because I would like to see somebody else in, but they only had four recalls to use. So, all in all, I was happy with all of their games. It's just hard. It's so hard to judge because the game means nothing. I mean, remember when? I'm going to dig up some names here from
Eric Nystrom hat-trick.
Yeah, well, Nystrom at least carved out a pretty decent NHL career, but I'm thinking more like who'd be getting like the Iginla trade, like Kenny Agostino and Ben Hanowski is the one I was thinking of. It's just like there's no reason to be excited about this debut because ultimately, it didn't become anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, these guys are a lot more prominent names in terms of being high end prospects. So we'll see how it plays out. But again, where it's just one game into the season, it's like it's about what I expected it to be. What about you? What were your thoughts on it?
I'm going to echo what you said. I take one games with a grain of salt, much like I took Dustin Wolf's one game last year with a grain of salt, right? I mean, I liked how Morton looked. I love how he went to the net. I love his grittiness. I just I kind of like his style from what I've seen so far, right? Young. Parekh, I'm kind of been a critic of Parekh because he scares me defensively, but I wasn't getting that feeling during that game. I love the way he moves the puck through the neutral zone, and we so badly need that. So very impressed there. Brustevich was exactly what I wanted to see. I didn't worry defensively. I thought he looked very calm. I thought he looked very composed and made some very smart plays for a first game. Suniev, he flew under the radar in the game. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think if this guy gets a year in the AHL next year, we could see really good things from him. I think he's progressing just like we wanted, and in one game, I thought he was just fine. And I think that's probably the term we need to cheer for is they will all look just fine, right?
Yep. Yeah. No. And again, given the situation they were in, it being their first game, I think it's good to get it kind of out of the way, so to speak. But we'll see what happens in camp next year with all four of them, right?
Yeah. Now we have a lot of locker cleanout to talk about. I do want to touch on one thing before, because I wanted to get your opinion on this. I meant to text you and figure out what your thoughts were, but let's just do it while we're on the show. The penalty kill for this team from October 9th. And thank you to Trevor Neufeld for the stats on this, because I did not dig this.
Trevor's great.
He did, and he has got his tweets are so good, so good. October 9th to January 29th, this team was ranked 29th, 71.3 in the penalty kill, and we talked about it numerous times on the show on how it was a thorn in our side and cost us points, right? And from January 30th to April 15th, this team was 84.6, second in the NHL.
Do you know why?
I don't know. In the 14 game hot streak down the stretch, we're 92.3%. I'm dying for you to tell me why.
Trent Cull. That's why. I don't know the exact.
The time frame is pretty dang close.
Yeah, well, he made, and I think Flames Nation had covered this a fair bit. Actually, he made some changes to their penalty kill that were extremely effective. And actually, it's made the situation kind of murky going next season because Craig Conroy said the other day he doesn't know what the situation is going to be necessarily with Brad Larson and may not know for a month or so yet if he's going to be returning or not. So, yeah, Trent Cull did a hell of a job. So what that looks like next season, I don't know. But, yeah, he changed their penalty kill setup altogether, and that's where a lot of that success came from. Now, those dates, they don't line up perfectly, but as I recall, they're damn close.
No, I think they are pretty close now that you say that. I did not see that. I did not recognize that, and I'm super glad you brought it up. So that begs me to ask you this. If a system change and a non-personnel change moved us from 29th to what was it, second? Would an offensive system change move us from 30th in goal scoring to 15th?
20th, I think,
I'm just throwing it out there, and I'm not ripping on Huska by saying that. I'm just saying, like, so many times we say, well, it's just the players. And God, we know this league is so quick to fire coaches, and that's definitely not what I'm trying to do here.
There's been a lot of them in the last week, man.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, we don't have the top end talent. And that is a star circle reason why we lacked the scoring ability this year.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, how much was the system that we played hindering that too? And we'll never know. But and I don't want, and I talk so contradictory too, because the last thing I would want would be this team to be a high fly and try to goal teams out of wins, and like we're not going to win that way. So I am slightly contradictory on that. It does get the wheels turning in my head if there isn't some maybe small tweaks that can be made to try to spark a little bit more offense for this team.
I don't think there's any question. I mean, the thing is that superstar players will score despite defensive laden systems, right? In a lot of cases. Calgary has lots of strong offensive players, and I don't think they're always put in positions to succeed, right? So there's no question in my mind that some tweaking, we would have seen a better year from guys like Sharon Govich. Even Huberto and Kadri. Kadri especially had a great year. I think, could have been in the 70-some points area had he been in a system more conducive to offense, which is, it's pretty simple to say that. It's a simple observation, but the reality is that we both watched, I think, every game this year, as we often attempt to do, or watch them later if we missed them live.
I missed a couple and rewatched them. So, I saw every single game this year.
Yeah, and same here, even if that meant going back to watch them. And it's, there are clearly points you can identify, what some different strategy would have meant in terms of the team's offense. But also, as players come into their own, like Matthew Coronado probably being the best example, we'll have to see next season how those guys perform under what's likely to be the same system. Because the reality is, despite any, we won't spend too much time on Ryan Huska, but despite whatever opinions are about him, obviously the culture thing has been repeatedly mentioned, how positive it is. And the team probably exceeded expectations by a solid 20 points or more, which is absurd.
So it's hard to be negative.
Yeah, he's absolutely the coach of the Calgary Flames next year. And I think the teams generally that are going to fire their coaches, except for those in the playoffs, of course, a lot of them have already done that. The Vancouver Canucks are not exercising their option on Rick Tocchet. Anaheim's moved on. The Rangers have moved on from Peter Laviolette. Greg Cronin, I should mention, was the coach in Anaheim who was dismissed. So there's those. Am I missing anybody? It's those three so far, I believe.
And Plasma in Seattle.
Dan Bylsma in Seattle, yeah. After only 1 year. And I don't know if they're blaming their regression on him. I shouldn't say they're blaming it on, but obviously the coach is always the easiest thing to replace. But that was kind of interesting to me.
Oh, that one stunk to me. The Laviolette one stunk too. I'm like, I don't know, man.
Well, the next one to go in New York's gonna be Chris Drury, and that's been mentioned several times throughout.
Rangers the first to go.
Yeah, well, I think he's trying to save his job, hence the coaching change. Yeah. But anyway. They have larger problems in New York right now that we're not going to get into. But anyway, are we ready to talk about
locker cleaning? Yeah. You lead the way. I'll throw in comments. I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are from all the discussions. I got a bunch of notes on different things people said that I thought were interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, they weren't all remarkable. A lot of them were cliche, and it's hard, obviously, to go through 22, 23 guys and their commentary. But I want to focus on the highlights are the most significant ones, of course. So Michael Backlund, we'll start with the captain, I guess. Backlund spoke at length about the variety of injuries he was contending with, which is a good thing to hear in that it certainly contextualizes a lot of his play down the stretch, which was spotty at best at times. Because I think a lot of the fears were like, oh no, his play has dropped off a cliff, he's getting older, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we know he was hurt for a little while when he missed those games, but ultimately, he had a lot going on this season we weren't always privy to. So,
back, ribs, oblique. The oblique's what caused him to miss some time. But a whole laden of injuries.
Yeah, it was just a slew of injuries. It was worse, I think, than any of us had initially realized. So obviously, he's got some recovery to focus on, and hopefully comes back into camp fresh and ready to go. The obvious standout, and I guess we'll jump to this one since we're talking about kind of like, I guess I'm kind of starting with like the core 5 or 6 players I was talking about.
Yep.
Rasmus Andersson, and I know this is the one you probably want to talk the most about, people want to probably hear the most about. That sounded very much like a player who is going to find his way or be shown his way to the door, given what his expectations are likely to be. I'm going to be honest. I didn't dislike some of what he said about, the fans in Calgary and the way that they kind of turned on him, because it did happen very quickly. But in their defense, his drop and play happened very quickly. The guy fell off a cliff, and he did. And I erroneously tweeted initially that he should have taken more responsibility, but I missed the first piece where he actually did talk about, he ate a lot of minuses. But saying that in passing versus reflecting on, I really had a very subpar year by my own standards. I'm not happy with my season. Like, he really glossed over how bad it really was.
Sure. He's trying to get paid.
Well, yeah. And so I can see both sides of it. I do think that some of the stuff on X from certain Flames fans was egregious and over the top. I was very critical of him too. I don't try to hide that fact.
I was too, and I don't try to hide it either. But I thought I was fair about it. And numbers don't lie, right? And
well, we said it on the last show. You have got, if you're going to command the kind of money that he's apparently trying to command, if you're going to be as bad defensively, if you're in the the minus 20s and 30s as a defenseman, you damn well be putting up as a defenseman 50 to 80 points. 80, of course, being superstar level, right?
Well,
we didn't get that, right?
And for sure, we shouldn't see a minus 38.
That's incredible. It's an astounding number. It's a truly I understand. I understand he had a broken bone, down the stretch. Okay, this wasn't a down the stretch issue. This was an all year issue from about November onwards.
Do you want to talk about the broken bone quick here so we don't forget? So on March 23rd, he breaks his fibula blocking a shot.
Yeah,
which I commend him for. Rasmus Anderson was completely unbelievable this year at blocking shots, and I will praise him as much as I criticize him for the things that he does right. But I'm really puzzled by this. So he's been battling through a broken fibula, in which caused him not to play the final game against LA. And they were out of it. But now he's trying to go play for Team Sweden in the Worlds. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a little strange. I thought that too. I was taken aback by that, quite honestly.
But going back to his speech.
Well, actually, let me jump in just for 1 second, because I think this is really important to point out. Kent Wilson had a brilliant quote years ago about Chris Russell at the time about, blocking shots is like killing rats. It's preferable to the alternative, but it suggests you have a much larger problem. The problem in these cases being the puck is always coming at you if you're always blocking shots. That was Chris Russell's problem. On a Flames team where a guy like, Kevin Rooney is out there giving, throwing the puck away, it's not always the defenseman's fault, but the puck typically moves from the defenseman forward. If the puck is always coming back at you, it does suggest that you're at least in part doing something wrong, and that was largely the case this season with him.
Strong point.
I love that quote. I'll never forget it. So, but anyway, back to the comment. You had something you want to say about his commentary.
I'm trying to remember where I was going with it. Numbers don't lie, but like, is Rasmus Anderson a good player? Yeah. And would I be upset if we signed him? No, I wouldn't. But it's got to be for a reasonable price tag, and the numbers he's listing are rumored to be listing. I have to say that, because I have not heard him say a number. Seem very inflated to me for a guy that had an off year. And we oftentimes in this league overpay for one good season, and we make that mistake.
Yep.
I just hope this team doesn't overpay coming off of a bad season also. And to me, his speech, or call it what you want, is it a speech? I don't even know what you'd call it. His interview sounded to me a bit farewellish.
Well, that's what a lot of people have been saying, and I agree. It was not. It was very his desire to be in Calgary, I think, was very understated. He talked about how much he loved it briefly, but I think, more than anything, it wasn't what he said, it's how he said it. His tone throughout was indicative of a guy who is likely to not be returning.
Yeah.
Is how I would best phrase that.
When he made his comment about you can only have so many right defensemen.
Well, that was the least latent comment of all. I'm glad you said that, because that was by far the most shit, this guy's leaving thing that he said. Yeah. But it's interesting, because if the prevailing sentiment is the guys, Prek may be NHL ready, is going to need a lot of defensive seasoning, which a buddy of mine who wanted to draft him has long said we can teach him defense, which is a good point. But he's almost implying that management seems to think that these righties are ready for the NHL.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily see that other than Perek, who is, thought to be a budding superstar, right? So
Yes.
I don't. It seems preemptive to say that. It's very suggestive. It's not like we had, two other right-hand defensemen this year who put up 40 points and were plus 10 on a pretty average to subpar team, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's
I
like
know.
he skipped two steps to say, like, yeah, we got all these right. Like, well, there's room for me. It's like, no, as an established NHLer with
They
how
should
long's Rasmus
be.
with the Flames now? Has it been 10 years now? 15,
Yeah.
16, or
No.
15, 16, or
Yeah,
16,
has been.
17 his first year. Yeah.
Wow, it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're talking about basically a decade with a player who is like, I'm pretty sure we're going to defer to him to having a roster spot. I would think, but
yeah.
Anyway,
I did like the one quote he had. He said, "No player in the NHL wants to lose a game. Losing is never an option. If you're cheering for us to lose, I don't think you're a real fan." I did like that comment.
Yeah. Well, and it caused a lot of people to backpedal. I think from what I was reading about, what they meant or trying to contextualize their comments. It's like, oh, we weren't really cheering for them to lose. Yeah, okay, like I can understand because.
So I'm not. This is not my X factor, but I'm not even going to say who tweeted this. But as soon as that LA Kings game dropped, I saw a tweet that said, "No playoffs, no top 10 pick, don't own their first round pick, no assets for expiring players," which I'm not sure what he's talking about there, and a waste of a season. And I shook my head and actually shut my computer that night because I'm like, you have to want to win. And we ask these players to stick their neck out every single night to win hockey games and to bust their ass. And I honestly, Kyle, and I don't think I'm wrong on this. I can think of 4 games, and I can't, please don't make me name them, but I've been kind of keeping a tally in my head of 4 games where when I turned off the TV that night, thought that wasn't a great effort. That means 78 games. I shut the TV off thinking, we maybe didn't win, but it was a good effort.
Even if you thought that for 70 games, that's still pretty damn good.
Right? That's my point. So these tankers, I'm just not sure what they're thinking in their head. So they want it. So if you hear me out on this, then we're going to quit talking about tankers and get back into this, into these locker cleanout. So if you're a tanker guy, right, that means you wanted Wolf to not be good this year. Yeah, that means you wanted him to not be good.
Yeah.
That means you wanted, it's absurd to think of if that route would have happened and we would have got a top 5 pick, that we'd be in better shape than we are now, knowing that we have a solid number 1 goalie. The concept of that to me blows my mind.
Well, I think it's kind of a case of, wanting to have your cake and eat it too for a lot of fans, right? They want both to be a superstar, but, stop 38 of, 41 shots, but lose 3-1, right? Like,
you can't hardly score less goals than we did this year.
You'd be hard pressed to do so.
What did you think of what Jonathan Huberdeau said? We tried to tank, but we kept winning. I thought it was great.
That was funny. Yeah, that was really positive. Actually, speaking of the tank thing, and then we will move on because I want to add something else here. Matthew and Claude, 2 of my buddies at work, they do the same job that I do. Matthew in particular was giving me a hard time because of Sean Monahan, right? And his career resurrection and how we gave up a first round pick to get rid of him. And he's absolutely right. It was I rank at the top 3 worst Flames trades of all time with the Gilmore and Savard trades. Like it was awful. But that guy that did that, Brad Treliving, no longer works here. So if you put it in, but think about it, you put that in any other context, that's like, well, I can't believe you fired that guy. He was great. It's like, hey, I didn't fire him. The guy that fired him doesn't work here anymore, right? Like, think about it. It's a funny concept, but ultimately, in a case like that,
if you brought it to the real world, it would.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's not the real world. I get that, but it's still funny to compare it a bit. And as far as Treliving goes, he was trying to make room for Nazem Kadri, in part because he was desperately trying to keep the team competitive when we were riding one of the franchise's highest points in 2022.
And quite honestly, Without Nazem Kadri this year, we're really screwed,
Oh yeah, he has a flair for the dramatic, man. He's dynamite.
right?
And actually, come to think of it, his is the only locker cleanout that I didn't see. So I'll get you to speak on that one.
I didn't see it either.
Huh.
He was not listed on the even. I did not even see a locker cleanout for him. Did not
weird.
see an interview for him.
Huh. Okay. Well, we'll keep moving on then. Let's talk about my favorite one. Let's get back on the positivity train here. Okay.
Okay.
Kevin Ball.
Okay.
I've never seen a professional hockey player be so direct and so pointed in his answers. It was the opposite of a politician. It was unbelievable. He was fantastic. He was like, they asked about long-term extension. He's like, yeah, that's the plan.
Yep. He
Okay,
said
sweet.
exactly what we wanted to hear.
He talked about his game and what he does well and what he wants to do better, how he thinks he has another level. He had this intensity in his eyes as he was addressing questions. I made a comment that I thought might get a little people, kind of pissy with me as if I was overrating him, but I made a comment that his stick was almost like a Nick Lidstrom light, and I want to emphasize light because he's nowhere near what Nick Lidstrom was.
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, his active stick broke up so many plays this season, so many potential high quality chances that Wolf and Vladar did not have to stop or even face because of Ball's play. But I could have listened to that guy talk all afternoon. I thought it was like, okay, you want to give Mackenzie Weegar the C, and I get it. Get Kevin Ball an A, because that's the kind of guy I want on my team.
Me too. I mean, you just mentioned the Weegar thing. I heard that he had a 3-hour long talk with Zane Perek about the culture and what the expectations are in Calgary. That's what leaders do too, right?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So let's, we'll sprinkle in a few other points. Connor Zary talked about what his expectations were and what happened with his knee. It was a different injury the second time, apparently. He was very close to a return, when the season ended. So I thought he was very candid and pointed, and obviously I think he feels that had he been able to play, this team would have made the playoffs. Not to put word in his mouth, but that's certainly the vibe I get, and understandably so. Matthew Coronado was just like a deer in the headlights with the media, but I liked what he had to say. Dustin Wolf.
See what you say about Dan. Let's talk Dan Vladar first, and then we'll get to Wolf. But what was your thoughts?
Yeah, Vladar was great, and he made me want him to stay in Calgary more than I previously did. He not?
I've been pro, and I talked about it a few weeks ago on the show about I really hope this team figures out a way to keep this tandem together, because I think that they work well together. From what Huska was alluding to also, that Huska would love to have Dan back too, because of the dynamics this year and how they work together and fed off of each other. And all Dan Vladar said was, I just want to stop pucks, and that he really likes being in Calgary. So, who knows what'll happen there.
Well, he also made a comment that, it's basically up to my agent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that said, there's a few things to consider here. One of which, perhaps the biggest of all, is Devin Cooley's going on a one-way contract next season. But Devin Cooley had a major injury this year and basically fell off a cliff. And
do you feel safe putting the ball in as a backup as with him? I don't.
Well, no, because the season got derailed.
That's right.
Now the Wranglers are in the playoffs against Coachella, so hopefully he gets a chance to, maybe show his stuff. But ultimately, in any case, I'd be more inclined to try and keep Vladar. But the problem now is a lot of teams will take notice that Vladar was excellent in the second half of the season. And they may, if the Flames are offering, I'm going to guess, $2 million a season, somebody else may offer $3 million, right?
Yeah, but here's the deal, though. I'm not so sure. I wouldn't say, well, I'll give you $3 million and match it, because I don't think anybody's taking him on as a starter. So I don't think he's getting 4 or 5 or 6. So they're going to be taking him on as a backup too. And with Wolf's salary still at one more year at a low, and the cap going up, I don't know that if you didn't sign him for $3 million, that you're putting yourself in a difficult situation cap-wise.
Well, I think
that would be the price tag for a solid backup.
Oh, I think so. And there's a few other factors too. He alluded to the fact the team took a chance on him. He has a family, and I suspect his wife likes Calgary, and that's a huge, huge factor that rarely gets talked about in the media unless you're Chris Pronger leaving Edmonton.
It's critical.
There's a lot of things that lead me to believe he is going to re-sign, and in an effort to replicate this past season's success, or at least the things that were successful, keeping Dan Vladar would be one of those things, especially given the uncertainty surrounding Devin Cooley, let alone any other goaltending prospect in the Flame system, as well as any available goaltenders this summer.
Yeah.
Dan Vladar understands the assignment. He is no longer, I think I said this in the last show, he's no longer looking to get as many starts as he can. He's looking to be as good as he can when he is starting. That's how I interpret his comments and his play.
And as much criticism as he got in parts of the year this year that I thought was kind of unfair, I think this guy was very good this year. And look at him in the LA game again. Just dynamic and really good. So I think as a backup goal, I don't think we could be in better hands than we would be with Dan Vladar.
No, absolutely. But again, other teams will see that. There could be conceivably a small bidding war for a player like that. I don't know, but I suspect he's going to resign. If I had to put money on it today. I said very recently I didn't think that was the case. Hearing him talk, thinking about it a bit more, I suspect he's going to stick around.
And hearing kind of what Huska said too.
Yes. Yep.
Before we get to Huska and Conroy, let's talk about Hanley, and this is going to bring us into our X factor here in just one moment too. But Joel Hanley was a guy that was a waiver pickup for this team from Dallas, and really has been good player. He's kind of like a Michael Stone, where he can sit out a game. We saw that earlier in the season, and miss 6-7 games and come in and act like he didn't miss a thing. And now we've got talk of a contract extension and where this team goes with Joel Hanley. I'll switch gears and bring it to our X factor. It comes off Pat Steinberg, who we all know with Fan 960. He put down locker cleanout day underway at the Dome. Joel Hanley says for sure he'd like to remain with Calgary pending as a pending free agent. Says great team, great guys, and feels like the group is ready to take the next step, which is exactly what all of us want to hear. But I don't know how you say this, but Jalil, I don't know. His response is our X factor when he says, do Solovyov, Kuznetsov, and Poirier just not exist anymore? And it does bring us to a real strong conversation about where does Joel Hanley fit? Do you want to see Joel Hanley in the mix, and how you feel on that? And I'm dying to hear what you think about, first of all, the X factor, which thank you very much for tweeting that out, but also spurring on conversation here in Flames Unfiltered.
Yeah, I chose this X factor because I thought it was interesting, because it's always that push and pull between, out with the old and with the new kind of thing. And I've been clamoring all season to give some of these guys a chance, and I don't feel that they really, any of them, got the chance that they maybe had earned, but that also is because Hanley was so much better than any of us anticipated. I'll tell you one thing right now, especially with the Stars missing Heiskanen, Thomas Harley is going to be eating a ton of minutes for them, and they would love to have the 24-25 edition of Joel Hanley on that team to help them against the Avalanche, because they are banged up. He'd be relatively inexpensive. I think I'd like to see him return, but I'm concerned that if he did, it is going to cause the issue that Jalil just mentioned, and that somebody else may not get a chance because Hanley is considered to be a regular. I thought he had an outstanding season, but I'm pretty sure I could play defensive Mackenzie Weegar, which is take nothing away from him. He was excellent, but I just worry it's going to jam up the guys behind him, right?
Well, okay, so let's dig deeper though into what he said and who he's talking about. I'm not losing any sleep next year if Miromanov is not in our roster. And I'm not losing any sleep next year if Jake Bean is not on our roster. And I'm not losing any sleep anymore on Jeremy Poirier. I am not sure where he's going to be.
Well, none of us are sure. That's one of the reasons this has become such a question, right?
But I don't know that he's on a roster. Like, I don't know that he's better than Hanley right now. And so I'm taking the safe route, right?
Well,
because I know what I got there. I got a 7th man that can step into my top 6. Do I want him in with Weegar? No, I want one of our young guys that are going to mature into that position, right? But is he not like a perfect stopgap for a year or two?
Well, that's what he was supposed to be this year. He ended up playing over his head, right? So
yeah.
The Jake Bean thing, we should touch on that quickly, because I thought he might have had the most interesting exit interview, because he was like You could tell he was really giving a lot of thought to his answers and was really disappointed, I think, in how his season went. He talked about when he felt he played a lot better, and I didn't necessarily disagree, but there's a consistency there that he's always struggled to find at the NHL level. And I agree with you. I'm not going to be upset if he wasn't to return.
And I will give him credit. I did think the last 20 games, 15, 20 games, he was better. I will say that. But I know he is under contract next year. And I also know we have a lot of young defensive prospects. Like, I would rather have a safe Hanley clogging the gates than a mediocre, inconsistent Bean.
Yeah, exactly. And I get that 100%. I mean, mind you, here, this is perhaps the X factor of all, is what happens if Rasmus Andersson is moved, because that changes everything in the Flames back end in terms of deployment, in terms of opportunity, in terms of players who are likely to emerge given opportunity. That would be a huge game changer, and one that I think, whether we like Andersson or we don't, I think we all established that we do, would be fascinated to see it. So that's going to be the topic, I think, all summer. The prior summer was things like goaltending and how bad the team was going to be. The composition of this defense core going into 25-26 season is going to be the hot topic. Now, because we could talk about these things, for the rest of time, we should touch on, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk about Dustin Wolf and his exit interview.
I thought he spoke candidly. He said a lot of the things that I thought he was going to say. And I mean, he was such a game changer for this team this year. And, I think he knows that. And I think he feels a lot more confident now. And I'm excited to see where that brings him into the future now.
The guy is a future Vezina Trophy winner. There's no question in my mind about that. Provided he has a team that can prop him up just enough to, edge other goaltenders with better teams.
Provided we make the right decisions this summer defensively.
Well, that's a big chunk of it, yeah.
Right?
And that's not, that's not limited to just the defensemen, and we should emphasize that. I mean,
no,
that fourth line, we talked about Adam Klapka being so much better, and I loved him in his exit interview, by the way. But more to the point, Wolf he's the number one thing anybody talking about the Calgary Flames needs to talk about.
What did you think of his comments?
Well, that was right on the money. I thought it was super professional, candid, humble.
Stood out. Like, he didn't make any wild quotes or anything that stood out to me.
He's not like that.
No, I know. That's what I want in a goalie.
Yeah, he's got, ice in his veins and super intense focus, especially for such a young kid. And no, I thought he was just the most business as usual, candid responses you could ask from him, and I can't wait to see him play next year. And I struggle so much to think the biggest disappointment of all is what this kid could have done in the playoffs. Because I'm telling you right now, he could have and conceivably would have stolen a series. I firmly believe that. Yeah,
totally could have, for sure. What before we go here, and we're getting a little long in the tooth today, but there was a lot to talk about. Craig Conroy, he reiterated that he's consistent and sticking to the plan, and that he would acquire players in the age range, and said the right things to show that he's staying the course.
Yeah.
But my question is, do you think that there's a slight fast forward button on the rebuild, basically because we got the goaltending? I don't want to say that we didn't expect, but it was even better than what we expected.
I don't know how it couldn't, because I think there's that balancing act, right? You're doing the team a disservice if you don't accept the fact they have pushed this rebuild ahead at least one full season.
I agree.
I don't think there's any question. You could even argue 2 years if you really want to push it, right?
Yeah.
That said, I appreciate the fact he's staying the course, but it absolutely changes some of the decisions he's going to be making. I think he's looking at players in that range he's talking about, but if the price is an extra piece that he previously would have been willing to part with, he's going to pull the trigger every time now.
So let me ask you this. Is there an opportunity with Andersson and a draft deal or whatever, where we can parlay that along with a young prospect into that dynamic center that we need?
I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I mean, it could conceivably be somebody like Trevor Zegras, Anaheim, just as a name, right?
To me, he's not the guy, but okay.
it depends on what the trade looks like. So
I know what you're saying.
The hesitation, in any case, this always happens. It's like, when somebody gets a fire lit under their ass. And if Anderson gets traded somewhere, I think he's going to go off next year, probably score 15, 20 goals and 50 points, right? And be a plus player.
And give all the fans something to complain about more. And I agree, because that's just the luck of the Flames, right?
Well, and it's what a motivated, competitive, strong player does, and a damn good player like Anderson is. But I'll put it this way: what happens with him this summer is the most important question facing the Flames, because you're talking about either a really long-term commitment at way more dollar than they conceivably should be paying, or you're talking about an acquisition wherein you move a guy who's considered to be a cornerstone of the team, and you're bringing in pieces that conceivably will help you make that next step. So
yeah,
you just alluded to it perfectly. It could be as soon as draft day. If there's a deal to be made on the floor, especially with the Flames draft position being what it is, maybe it happens then. If negotiations don't go well into the draft, I think he's gone on that day.
Too bad there's not a draft floor.
Right. Yeah.
Stupid.
Not this year anyway. Oh, that's incredibly stupid. So anyway.
So let me ask you, and we're going to move on from this because we got to get going. I got two more things to touch on before we get out of here. Do you let's say his contract expectations are higher than what the Flames want to go?
Uh-huh.
Do you think he's worth more moving him in the off season here, whether it be draft day or free agency / the latter part of this, off season, or is he worth more holding him till deadline next year?
There's two answers to that, and this is the problem. Okay. I feel like I'm on fire today. No pun intended. The problem is that if you cannot come to terms this summer and you hold him into the season, that will even if nobody says anything, that will inevitably create the rumor that they're not re-signing him, he's going to be traded, and his value can go down.
I wanted you to say that because I completely agree. And then you put yourself in the bind that, oh man, we're in a playoff spot. We can't afford to get rid of Anderson. Now we got to keep him through the playoffs and hope we can re-sign him. Then it's winging a prayer. You're doing a Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk thing, and it's like, oh boy, we don't want to go down that road again, right?
Well, exactly. So if you can't sign him this summer, if he goes into camp without a contract extension, I think that's the worst case scenario for the Flames. Yeah. I shouldn't say it's either a contract extension or he's traded before camp.
Yeah,
one of those two things has to happen to create the most positive outcome for the Flames. So, all right, what's your next thing? What else you got?
Worlds. We got Mackenzie Weegar committed to Canada, Anderson to Sweden, Coronado to US, Vladar to Czechia, and Zane Perek to the pre-tournament for Canada. Yeah. Do you want guys doing this, or do you want guys staying home?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's hard not to admire the competitive spirit, especially if a guy like Mackenzie Weegar, where it's like, yeah, you're going to go to the Worlds? Yeah, I'm going. Oh, you want to think about it? No, I'm going. Okay, all right, cool. Like,
I know. That's exactly what I thought.
You got to love that, right?
I want the Olympics. Like I totally understand why guys would want to go to the Olympics, but gosh, I don't want my guys going to the Worlds. Unless they're young guys. Like I understand Coronado and I understand Perek, and for some maybe I actually understand Vladar's point right here too. So, but gosh dang, I don't want these guys going.
Well, again, I admire the competitive spirit of it, but they're not playing meaningful hockey when they should be, so I can understand the motivation. But I mean, a lot of these guys do need an extended off season to get their heads straight, let their bodies heal up, do whatever. And for a lot of them, do whatever they got to do. So in Perek's case, who, as you just alluded to, by doing the pre-tournament games, is not joining the Calgary Wranglers for their playoff run. He's talking about how much muscle he's gained, how he has to gain more. Everybody on that team, they want to get quicker, they want to get stronger, they want to get something, right? Yeah. And I as much as playing hockey helps, I find in some instances, like I took a few months off from playing hockey and hit the gym and put on probably 15 pounds. And it was noticeable on the ice. Like I was harder to take off the puck in the corners, just little things like that. So they all have a goal. And I think not playing in the World Championships is more conducive to that goal than playing in them, in my opinion. But I am by no means an expert.
I agree. Before we go, I do feel like we at least need to just mention this. I don't think we need to dive deep into it, but some pretty important things, I guess. Some awards. Kirkland's been nominated from the Flames for the Masterton. Weegar wins the Peter Maher Award, the Good Guy Award, and Huberdeau has been nominated for the King Clancy for the Flames. And all very honorable things that I think we should at least mention on the show.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's a lot of strong individual seasons. Just not quite enough of them to put them over the top, right?
That's right.
So anyway, it'll be next season before you know it. But in the meantime, we should do our best to enjoy the playoffs, and we'll be doing this. All summer. I mean, Brad kind of sprung the summer plan on me on last show live on the air. He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "We're doing this every week all summer." I'm like, "What?"
Little does Kyle know that I sat down today and made up a schedule for the summer, and I'll fire it over him later tonight for him to give me the yay or the nay. So
a lot of it's going to be ask me that week. You know, I could be on a beach somewhere. I don't know, right? I mean, if things go the way I hope they go, but they rarely do in this thing we call life. So one never knows. Regardless of any of that, you will be hearing from us aplenty.
You will. NHL Draft Lottery is May 5th. NHL Drafts the 27th, 28th. Kyle has his benefit hockey. Don't forget that if you want to hop on, help out the Hockey Heroes weekend. He's still raising money for that, has met goal 1. We want to get him to goal 2. So please take a look at our social medias for updates on that. Next week, we're back with a regular episode. We're going to be doing some player reviews, talking about what kind of grades we gave the players for this season. That should be fun. And then we'll move into some off-season game plans in the coming weeks. It's going to be a jam-packed summer talking Flames hockey. We also got some special episodes that we're going to do this summer that'll be a little more condensed for you. They're going to be 30-minute shows about different things in Flames history or different Flames topics that will fill your Flames hockey talk needs. We hope you enjoy that. As we leave today, the band that we featured the first on the show, Booze and Tuna, they're getting ready for their summer tour. They're going to be in Braddock, Underwood, Carrington, and Crosby, all in June. Get out and see Booze and Tuna live as we leave. Enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs. Kyle, I hope your shoulder injury heals. And we have a good week.
Me
right?
too. Yeah, likewise, man. Appreciate that.
Now we can just watch hockey and have a little stress-free.
I need that to respond to that. I mean, in terms of not stressing over whether or not we're in the playoffs or not, yeah, there is some relief that comes with that, as disappointing as it is. Yeah, we can use the playoffs to distract us from our lifestyle stress for sure.
That's right. All right, Flames fans, have a good week. We will talk next week in Enjoy the Playoffs.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to Flames Unfiltered with Brad Burud and Kyle Lewis, your source for unfiltered Calgary Flames hockey talk. Keep it locked on flamesunfiltered.ca. Subscribe where you get all your podcasts to never miss an episode. Flames hockey talk every week, presented by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.